At the family BBQ, my evil sister mocked me. "Nobody likes you here, a stupid piece of trash." My mom glared at me. Dad nodded in agreement. I said nothing, just silently enjoyed my cocktail. Suddenly, Grandpa stood up abruptly and said 5 words. Everyone started to fear. "My name is Clara Davies. 34 years old, I'd spent 15 years building a successful career as a senior data analyst just to prove them wrong. Yet here I was, back in the lion's den. I drove the 200 miles from Silicon Valley to my parents' estate in San Mateo knowing exactly what was coming, the annual public humiliation. This wasn't a family gathering, it was a showcase for the Vance golden children and a reminder of my permanent outsider status. The moment arrived right after Dad finished his tedious speech about Liam's latest and clearly failed brand initiative. Audrey, looking sharp in a designer outfit that did nothing to hide her painfully thin figure, a look she cultivated, along with her all-female entourage, raised her cocktail glass not to toast, but to target me. "Oh, and look who decided to grace us with her presence." She drawled her voice, carrying across the perfectly manicured lawn. She didn't pause. She never did. "Nobody likes you here, Clara, a stupid piece of trash who ran off to play with spreadsheets instead of supporting the real family business." My mother Carol gave me a cold glare, the kind that promised weeks of passive-aggressive phone calls, and my father simply nodded slowly, reinforcing every word. I said nothing, just silently took a sip of my Moscow Mule, letting the ice numb the familiar sting. It was just another Tuesday for the Vance family. But then Grandpa Arthur Vance, the 85-year-old founder of Vance Technologies and the only truly powerful person present, abruptly pushed his chair back, the metal scraping harshly against the stone patio. He stood rigid, silent, and then he spoke, his voice cutting through the laughter and gasps like a diamond on glass. He said 5 words: "Get the lawyer on the line." Everyone stopped, frozen in sheer terror. "Before you dive deeper into how those 5 words destroyed my toxic family, let me know when you're watching and in what city. Your comments help me see how far my story has traveled. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next story of sweet, sweet justice." Rewinding several years before that tense afternoon where the favoritism began to shape everything. The Vance family built its legacy on Vance Technologies VT, a tech giant that Grandpa Arthur started from a garage in the 80s. When my parents, Richard and Carol, took over, they focused less on innovation and more on image. Audrey, always their golden child, was immediately put on the fast track, given a fluffy brand consultant role straight out of college, a title that meant constant travel, private jets, and zero accountability. My brother Liam, who was actually supposed to have the business acumen, quickly became Audrey's silent partner in crime, enjoying the reflected glory and joining in the collective disdain for me. I was the inconvenient daughter, the one who asked too many questions, scored too high on standardized tests, and refused to play the family game of smoke and mirrors. Growing up, every one of Audrey's colossal failures, from wrecking a company car to botching a major product launch, was swept under the rug and inevitably blamed on my negative energy or lack of family loyalty. I was systematically excluded from family photo shoots, financial discussions, and even simple birthday dinners. They used the term black sheep lightly, but the constant emotional deprivation was real and damaging. It taught me one crucial thing: if I wanted respect or success, I had to earn it entirely outside the Vance ecosystem. That conviction led me to pursue data science, an incredibly demanding merit-based field where my results spoke for themselves. I thrived on the clean logic and verifiable truth of algorithms, a stark contrast to the Vance family's world of emotional manipulation and fabrication. I moved across the country first for my master's at Stanford, and then into my current role as a senior analyst in the Bay Area, earning a 6-figure salary entirely on my own merit. Meanwhile, Audrey continued her charade. She was obsessed with her external image, meticulously posting filtered photos of her high-powered meetings and exclusive events. She maintained a painfully thin, flat-chested aesthetic that she marketed as high fashion, surrounded by a rotating cast of similarly styled friends who lived to validate her superficial lifestyle. The truth was, she was a financial black hole for VT. Her consulting led to zero profitable innovations, just massive expenses funneled into vanity projects. Liam, the supposed heir, spent his time managing Audrey's bad PR rather than learning actual business strategy. My parents didn't care about performance, they cared about appearances. And Audrey's life looked good on paper, even if the balance sheets told a very different story. They were so blinded by their need for a glamorous successor, they completely ignored the quiet competence I possessed. The last time I had seriously tried to engage with them about a real business strategy, Dad had cut me off saying, "Clara, we need charm and connections, not your basement spreadsheet genius. Stick to what you're good at, which is staying out of the way." Their words fueled my silent ambition. Every professional milestone I hit was a quiet, private victory against their lifelong judgment. The necessity of returning to the family orbit only arose because Vance Technologies, despite the glossy exterior curated by Audrey, was secretly struggling. Their market share in core sectors was dwindling, and the stock price had stagnated for 2 straight quarters. My father, Richard, needed actual competence, but his pride wouldn't let him admit it openly. One chilly Tuesday morning, I received a call, not an affectionate check-in, but a business proposition laced with thinly veiled insults. "Clara, your mother and I have decided it's time you came home." Dad announced, his tone demanding rather than inviting. "We're willing to create a minor executive position for you. You can help clean up some of the data backlogs. It's not a senior role, of course, but it's a good step up from that niche firm you're at." I stifled a laugh. He didn't even know the name of the niche firm that was a world leader in predictive analytics. I quickly declined, citing my ongoing projects. "We're prepared to triple your current salary," Mom chimed in, suddenly taking the phone. They always resorted to money, believing their corporate dollars trumped my intellectual freedom. I calmly told them that my current compensation package already exceeded the number they offered, a fact they refused to believe. The call ended with their usual frustration and a subtle threat about missing out on the family legacy. A few days later, a heavy embossed envelope arrived, bypassing the usual family channels. It was an invitation personally signed by Grandpa Arthur, asking me to attend a family strategic review at his main residence, the same house where the birthday BBQ was to be held. Not a request, but a subtle command. This was unusual. Grandpa Arthur rarely got involved in the day-to-day operations and almost never contacted me directly. That same evening, my cousin Ben Thompson, the one person in the family who possessed both a good conscience and a law degree, called me under the guise of catching up. "Clara, listen carefully." Ben's voice was low and urgent. "Grandpa's been working with my firm on a massive overhaul. It's the will. I can't disclose the specifics, but Richard and Carol have been pushing him hard to finalize it, guaranteeing Audrey the controlling stake. I think they know time is running out, and they're consolidating power." Ben warned me that the family's actions, the increasing hostility, and the sudden job offer were likely a calculated effort to either neutralize me or bring me back under their direct control before the official documents were signed and sealed. He confirmed what I already suspected: Audrey wasn't just relying on emotional favor. She was actively campaigning, presenting herself as the only competent heir, while Richard and Carol paved the way. Ben, however, made it clear that Grandpa Arthur was watching, and that I shouldn't ignore the invitation. The pressure was immense. Audrey, totally unaware of the high-stakes game being played behind the scenes, posted a celebratory photo of herself on a yacht, with the caption, "Future CEO vibes." The arrogance was breathtaking, but it also told me how sure she was of her impending inheritance. That weekend, I used the only skill they had: never respected my deep expertise in leveraging proprietary data models to conduct a discrete investigation. They wanted me back to manage data backlogs. Fine. I would use their own data against them. I started by analyzing publicly available market data coupled with proprietary datasets from my current firm, with ethical boundaries, of course, concerning VT's main competitors and their patent filings. My analysis was damning. Audrey's brand consulting phase was a quantifiable disaster. The internal data, which I could only access through back-channel heavily anonymized financial reports Ben helped me source, showed that her major initiatives consistently resulted in negative ROI. The exclusive celebrity endorsements she championed were bleeding the marketing budget dry with negligible sales lift. More concerning was the emerging pattern of resource misallocation. It wasn't just incompetence. It was bordering on strategic sabotage either through negligence or sheer stupidity. The family was so focused on the image of their golden daughter that they were failing to see the structural rot she was causing. The deeper I dug, the clearer the picture became. Vance Technologies wasn't just struggling, it was fundamentally unsound, being steered straight into an iceberg by a self-proclaimed visionary who only understood Instagram filters. While conducting deep dives into the competitor landscape, I stumbled upon something far more personal and volatile. My current CEO, a man named Victor Sterling, was suddenly liquidated a substantial portion of his vested stock options, a very unusual move for someone who had just sealed a multi-million-dollar venture capital round. Victor was charming, ruthless, and highly respected in our field, but I knew him for something else. He had stolen and published my graduate thesis work under his name, costing me a major fellowship opportunity years ago. I kept silent then because I lacked the evidence, but the resentment simmered. Now the internal financial reports I analyzed showed a massive unregistered private loan payment moving into Victor's offshore account, originating from a shell company notoriously used by Vance Technologies for opaque transactions. The pieces clicked together. Victor Sterling was not just leveraging his current company, he was getting paid by VT. I used my network to discreetly confirm the rumor that Victor was planning a sudden departure from my company. The connection wasn't just financial, however. The next day, I found myself face-to-face with him at an exclusive low-profile tech investors' cocktail reception in downtown San Francisco. He looked momentarily startled, the smile draining from his face when he saw me. He quickly recovered, introducing the woman draped on his arm. It was Audrey Vance. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My sister, the one who mocked me as trash, was dating the man who had stolen my past work and was now likely profiting from her family's corruption. This wasn't just a family fight anymore. It was business betrayal and a chance for double revenge. The connection between Victor and Audrey was more complicated than I initially thought. It was rooted in ambition, not affection. Victor was not only Audrey's secret boyfriend, but clearly her strategic advisor, the muscle she lacked, preparing to transition his considerable, though morally compromised, expertise into the Vance family empire. My brief encounter with them at the reception confirmed his intention. Victor, putting on his best performance of casual detachment, mentioned his future career pivot, hinting strongly at moving into the private equity sector, a thinly veiled reference to joining VT. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly observing their movements and collecting more data points. Meanwhile, my parents, realizing I wasn't taking their verbal bait, ramped up the pressure. They unexpectedly froze the small trust fund my Grandpa Arthur's late wife had set up for me years ago. "It's a sign of good faith, Clara," Dad explained, devoid of warmth. "If you're serious about your family, you won't need that petty cash." It was their final clumsy attempt to assert financial control. It was also completely ineffective. The amount was negligible compared to my analyst salary, but the principle behind the move infuriated me. It underscored their belief that they could still buy and manipulate me. The hostility intensified. Audrey started leaving me long, condescending voicemails detailing her latest success stories and advice for my stuck career. Her favorite phrase was, "You'll never understand how the real powerful people operate, Clara. They don't analyze, they act." Liam chimed in with a passive-aggressive text saying he heard my company was losing talent, suggesting I might soon be jobless. I deleted their messages without replying. I knew their bluster was just fear thinly masked by arrogance. Then came the crucial piece of information delivered in code during a secure video call with Ben. We discussed the date of Liam's birthday barbecue, which was rapidly approaching. Ben subtly confirmed that the gathering wasn't just a celebration. It was the official private signing and reading of Grandpa Arthur's new trust documents, and will taking place immediately after the casual family lunch. "The date is set," Ben stressed, "and the documents are ready. Grandpa wants everyone present without exception." Ben also let slip one crucial detail about the contents, something about performance clauses and unforeseen contingencies, which sent a clear message Grandpa Arthur had not signed anything yet and was using the gathering as a final performance review. The true high-stakes moment wouldn't be Audrey's insults, but the quiet legal finality waiting after the cake. I realized the family's abuse wasn't just psychological, it was now a desperate tactical maneuver to shake my confidence right before the biggest decision of the family's history. I now knew exactly why I had to be there. I had to deliver my own performance review. I drove back to the estate, the California sun glinting off the hood of my sedan, feeling a cold professional calm wash over me. I wasn't Clara the hurt daughter. I was Clara the analyst, the strategist entering a negotiation armed with facts and moral superiority. The atmosphere at the Vance compound was exactly as expected: loud, aggressively cheerful, and dripping with pretension. Audrey was holding court near the bespoke grill, laughing too loudly with Victor Sterling, who now acted like a fully integrated member of the Vance elite. Liam, my brother, kept shooting me smug, judgmental glances from across the pool, still basking in the glow of his undeserved birthday attention. My parents greeted me with calculated indifference. "Clara, you're late," Mom said, barely glancing up from her conversation with a distant relative who was clearly only there for networking. "Try to be pleasant for once." Dad Richard simply offered a curt handshake, making me feel like an unnecessary business associate rather than his own child. I ignored the subtle digs and, as planned, poured myself a Moscow Mule, settling into a quiet corner seat, silently observing the scene. I watched Audrey, her voice shrill with false confidence, gesturing wildly as she recounted a fictionalized triumph at VT, a triumph I knew was actually a disastrous write-off, thanks to my data model. Victor watched her with a faint, cynical smirk, the expression of a man who was fully aware he was dating a fraud, but intended to profit immensely from it. Then came the moment from the hook. Dad signaled for quiet, and Audrey, fueled by 3 glasses of champagne, stepped forward, stealing Liam's spotlight with ease. She launched into a mock toast. "I want to dedicate this to family." She began, emphasizing the word like an exclusive club membership, "and to those of us who actually contribute to the Vance name, not the ones who run away to menial jobs and embarrass us." She paused for dramatic effect, locking eyes with me. "Oh, and look who decided to grace us with her presence," she repeated almost verbatim from our past exchanges, her voice laced with venom. "Nobody likes you here, Clara, a stupid piece of trash who ran off to play with spreadsheets instead of supporting the real family business." The usual public execution. Mom's icy glare and Dad's slow, affirmative nod were my cue to sink into myself, but not today. I simply took a silent, slow sip of my cocktail, maintaining eye contact. I wasn't going to react. I was going to calculate. The silence stretched until it was suffocating. Suddenly, a sound echoed across the patio, the violent scraping of a metal chair. Grandpa Arthur Vance had abruptly pushed back and stood up. All eyes snapped to him, waiting for the customary polite deflection, but his face was thunderous, etched with a rage I hadn't seen since I was a child. He stared directly at the center table right past Audrey and Victor. And then his voice, deep, resonant, and utterly commanding, sliced the air. 5 chilling words. Get the lawyer on the line. The entire gathering froze. Audrey's champagne flute hovered halfway to her lips. Dad's casual smile evaporated instantly. Grandpa Arthur did not wait for anyone to move. He gestured sharply toward the house. Ben, get in here now and bring the documents. Ben Thompson, who had been lingering nervously by the buffet table, quickly produced a thick, leather-bound folder. The air was no longer merely tense, it was vibrating with dread, especially around Audrey and my parents. Richard, my father, tried to interject, his voice cracking with forced authority. Father, we can discuss business later. This is Liam's birthday. Grandpa Arthur silenced him with a look of utter contempt. This is business, Richard. And I believe the rest of the family has had enough of the entertainment for one afternoon. He then addressed the crowd, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the extended family, the employees, and the hangers-on. For years, I've watched this company, my legacy, be systematically eroded by vanity, incompetence, and moral deficiency. I had hoped the next generation would bring improvement. Instead, they brought fraud and cruelty. He didn't use flowery language. He used sharp, actionable words. He gestured to the folder. The final trust and will documents are here. They are contingent on one thing: verifiable competence and moral fitness, factors entirely absent from my supposed heirs, Audrey and Liam. Audrey burst out, her voice hysterical. Grandpa, what are you doing? I've been running the brand. I am the face of Vance Technologies. Grandpa Arthur simply nodded toward Victor Sterling, who had gone pale and was now desperately trying to merge with the nearest shrubbery. Victor Sterling, Grandpa stated clearly, is not only my eldest granddaughter's deceitful boyfriend, but he is also a known corporate thief who is plotting to financially leverage Audrey's position before marrying her. Clara provided me with the irrefutable data analysis, proving Victor's current company was his next target, a plan he hatched with Audrey's knowledge. She lacks integrity, and she lacks the intellect to cover her tracks. This was a double whammy, exposing Audrey's betrayal and Victor's fraud simultaneously. The sheer shock on my parents' faces was priceless. Grandpa Arthur then pointed directly at me. Clara Davies, the stupid piece of trash, is the only person in this family who operated on pure merit. She built a career on logic and truth, which Vance Technologies desperately needs. He then delivered the final crushing blow. I hereby declare that 72% of the controlling shares and voting rights of Vance Technologies are immediately transferred to Clara Davies. Richard and Carol, your positions on the board of directors are terminated immediately. Audrey and Liam, you will each receive a non-voting fractional percentage of the company, enough to sustain a modest life, provided you seek employment elsewhere. He signed the document with a decisive flourish. This decision is final, non-negotiable, and irreversible. The collective terrified silence was replaced by Audrey's piercing scream and the sound of my father Richard whispering, "It can't be." The chaos that ensued lasted less than an hour but initiated months of ruin. Richard and Carol, stripped of their titles and the vast majority of their assets, were utterly broken. They had bet their entire future on Audrey's social currency and Liam's potential, completely neglecting the one child who possessed genuine talent. Their corporate jets, their luxury properties, and their lavish salaries were gone. The most immediate and painful consequence, designed by Grandpa Arthur's careful planning, was the need to sell their primary San Mateo estate to cover the sudden massive inheritance tax burden on the non-liquid assets they had retained, a very real and practical financial consequence in the U.S. Audrey's life crumbled dramatically. Without the Vance name and the financial cushion, she was exposed as utterly incompetent. Her so-called friends vanished overnight. Her vanity consulting firm collapsed. Victor Sterling facing a potential legal entanglement related to corporate espionage, I was now in a position to expose, fled the state, and the relationship leaving Audrey to face the public humiliation alone. Liam, realizing his easy path was closed, was forced to take a low-level entry desk job in a non-related industry, constantly complaining about the indignity of having to earn a paycheck. They tried to contact me, of course. My mother, Carol, resorted to manipulative tears, claiming family was all that mattered. My father used legal threats demanding I reverse the decision. Audrey sent increasingly desperate, venomous emails calling me a corporate pirate. I did not respond. I changed my phone number, established a new legal entity for VT, and instructed Ben to handle all incoming communication. 6 months after the barbecue, I officially severed all ties. My relationship with them was not just financially damaged, it was morally corrupt and toxic beyond repair. I sent a final email to my parents, Audrey and Liam, a concise message drafted with Ben's legal oversight. I wrote, "I have rebuilt Vance Technologies on the principles of meritocracy and integrity. None of you embody those values. Our relationship is permanently terminated. Do not attempt further contact." It was the simplest and most liberating thing I had ever done. Taking control of Vance Technologies was intensely challenging but incredibly rewarding. I brought in fresh talent, streamlined the operation using the data models they had ridiculed, and cleaned out the toxic management culture my parents had fostered. The company began to thrive immediately. The best revenge I realized wasn't just taking their money. It was proving that their lifetime of contempt had only fueled my success, and that I was inherently better than all of them combined. Ultimately, my story offers a valuable lesson. Never let toxic blood ties define your worth. The only currency that matters is the one you earn through your own competence, your resilience, and your commitment to integrity. Family is supposed to be your foundation, but when it becomes your prison, you have an obligation to yourself to tear it down and build your own empire on solid ground. The pain was real, but the freedom and the 7-figure salary are priceless. I hope my journey empowers others who are trapped in the shadow of family narcissism to find their own moment of truth.